In 1936, dancer and choreographer Martha Graham was invited to Germany. She was asked to represent the United States at the International Dance Festival in Berlin. She refused. In her letter of refusal, Graham wrote, "I would find it impossible to dance in Germany at the present time. So many artists whom I respect and admire have been persecuted, have been deprived of the right to work for ridiculous and unsatisfactory reasons, that I should consider it impossible to identify myself by accepting the invitation with the regime that has made such things possible." This year, the 100th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote, the Martha Graham Dance Company created the Eve Project, a combination of new dances, new commissions, and signature Graham pieces that make bold statements about female power. In February, a group of women from NSCI traveled to Washington, D.C. for a weekend of culture and learning and community, and we were blessed to see the Eve Project. Incredible, just incredible. Bold moves on the stage, incredible statements about events in the world, including that which Graham wrote about in that letter, that refusal letter to Germany. I was struck by the dance moves, and I was struck by the deep historical connections in Graham's work. It reminded me of Lillian Hellman's words when she, in 1952, was called before the House Un-American Activities Committee. You may recall that Hellman didn't refuse to show up, but she refused to speak about anyone other than herself, writing the now famous words which live on, words that I quote, "I cannot and will not cut my conscience to fit this year's fashions." Graham and Hellman speak loudly to me generally and this week. Tuesday, August 18th, our country marked the actual 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. Think about that. Think in terms of your own family even. When I think about my family, I think about my grandmothers, Rose and Ruth. In 1920, they were 15 and 19 years old, respectively. Neither was able to vote yet, because as some of you may know, the voting age was still 21. But I can't help but wonder what they felt when this news came through. I thought of it last week when my eldest child, my elder daughter Noah, and my niece Lexi, respectively 16 and 17, were talking about what election would be the first one they would vote in. I thought, wow, for them, it's a given that they can and will vote. For their great-grandmothers, namesakes of my children, it was not the case. So think about that. The efforts and for decades of how many suffragists who fought for the right to vote. And then I think of another woman, one more universally known perhaps. This woman sits majestically. She sits blindfolded often, carrying scales hanging before her, perfectly balanced. We see her carved in stone before so many buildings across the globe. She's a grand lady, mythic, Roman in her heritage. She is impartial. She is Lady Justice. Justice, principles, convictions. Justice. Justice is the key word in Torah this week. Our Torah portion, Shoftim, lifts up the word tzedek, or justice. It lifts it up through the word and instructions that appear throughout this portion and throughout Torah, frankly, but it is elevated particularly in the opening verses of the portion. Our ancestors were told to appoint judges who would govern with what was described as mishpat tzedek, do justice or just rule. The message of Torah is plainly stated. Do not judge unfairly, show no partiality. Do not take bribes, for bribes blind the eyes of the discerning and upset the plea of the just. And what follows those instructions are the famous words I'm sure you've heard. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Justice, justice you shall pursue. Justice, justice you shall pursue. We've heard these words, they're almost a mantra within our Jewish tradition. They've even echoed beyond, they're in our shared scripture. Pursue justice, run after it. Perhaps they're so common, so familiar, that we don't really think about what they mean. So I invite you to take a few moments with me this Shabbat and take them in. Consider, what is justice? The dictionary defines justice, interestingly, as using the word, a concern for justice, peace, and genuine respect for people. Jewish tradition defines tzedek as rightness or righteousness or fairness. I might add, as some of you may have heard, that tzedek is a first cousin, as it were, to tzedakah, the word we use for charity, which is really also justice, fairness. For when we give to help those in need, what are we doing? We're trying to level the proverbial playing field to make the world more fair, more just. Shoftim opens with a description of the judicial system, but really we know that justice includes the judicial system and goes much beyond. It does not live solely in the courts. It is on us too. The Jewish understanding of justice is inherent in our quest to repair our world. You've heard the phrase tikkun olam, repair of the world. Explicitly and implicitly, justice is in our actions, how we practice how we carry out our business ethics. Honestly, Torah says. How we care for the needy. How we pay people who do work for us. We're told in Torah you're not supposed to keep a laborer's wages overnight. How we provide food for the hungry, right? Think about Torah, leave the corners of the field and the edges for those who are in need. How we regard and treat others, how we speak about others. Don't speak using Lashon Hara, negative speech. Don't put people at a disadvantage. How we treat others without regard for their social or economic status, whether it's high or whether it's low, we should treat everyone equal. And the most frequently spoken or written words in Torah, commandments, say, remember that you were strangers in Egypt. That is, we were treated as outsiders. We know what that means. So we are told to remember that as we treat others, and ideally treat them with chesed, with kindness, and without negative bias. The Torah commentator Ibn Ezra points out that the word tzedek, justice, is repeated here deliberately. Repetitions in Torah are not by accident. They're not typos. They're there with purpose. So Ibn Ezra plays on that and says the word appears twice because one must pursue justice, whether it is to one's gain or one's loss. Think about that. Whether it helps you, you pursue justice, or whether it hurts you, you are to pursue justice. What a mandate. Ibn Ezra continues that the repetition might also denote time after time, that is, all the days of our life. That repetition reminds us that we're not told to just pursue justice once or twice or 4 times. We're supposed to pursue justice again and again. That's some charge. Pursue justice throughout your life, whether it helps you or hurts you. And I want to add one more thing. Pursue justice. What does pursue mean? To run after. Our tradition teaches us to pursue peace, to pursue justice. That is, go after it. Don't wait for a situation to come to you. Oh, yeah, I'll take care of that. I'll make it more just. You see something out in the world that's unjust, that's not fair. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, justice, justice you shall pursue, says go fix it. Or at the very least, go try to fix it. You may not complete the work. And so here we are, August 2020. We're living in a world that is rocked by a pandemic that has taken the lives of more than 170,000 Americans alone. We're living in a world shaken by deaths, new deaths and old deaths and damages due to skin color, race, and ethnicity. We're living in a world in which economic fears are growing geometrically. A world in which so many of us are scared and worried about health, about sustenance, about loved ones, about life. A world in which we could so easily retreat to the couch or to the armchair, binge watch the next series of who knows what, and not lift our head up or walk out the door to see the injustices. And let's be clear, there are days for all of us that we do that, and we need to do that. But our tradition says we can't stay on the couch or stick our heads in the proverbial sand. So on this Shabbat Shov team, the call to justice rings out and challenges us. Justice, justice, pursue justice. So I ask myself, what is justice for you? How do we pursue justice today? How do we take our principles, popular, unpopular, and run for the greater good, run after justice? How do we make the world more fair, more right, more just? One way to think about this is to think first of who or what inspires you. Perhaps you see Lady Justice balancing scales. Imagine the bold dance moves of Martha Graham. You read or have read the sharp prose of Lillian Hellman. You identify with the fights of the suffragists. Or you think about the legacy, the history of your own family, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. Each of us has a history. Each of us has values. And each of us has a mandate before us to act. Each of us has a vote to cast. Each of us has a letter to write, an email to craft, a phone call to make, a bag of groceries to deliver to a hungry person, an opinion on legislation to voice, a postcard or petition to sign. Whatever we choose to do to run after justice and make it happen or make it even closer to happening, justice is not an option for us. Justice is the Jewish imperative. Unless we get stuck in the extreme aloneness of this time, and that is so real for many, if not all of us. Lest we get stuck in the I'm in my own world and I can't imagine the impact on others, and our desire to focus in and hunker down, I invite you to consider an image, a beautiful image from a mystical Torah commentary called the Ketem Paz. This commentary compares the Jewish people to a rope. Think about a rope. It's made up of many strands interwoven. Not a very good visual here. They're all linked together. Ketem Paz explains, just as in a rope, the threads are twisted, intertwined, and bound with the other until they become one strand. So too must we, the Jewish people, be twisted together, bound, and intertwined one with the other. Think about that image. When we act, when we run after justice, we form the threads of a rope that together is stronger because we are together. Indeed, when we all live our professed values, when we all pursue justice as we see fit, but we do chase after justice, we, like a rope, are stronger. Tzedek, tzedek tirdof. Justice, justice shall you pursue. Justice, justice shall we pursue together. Shabbat shalom.